conference, and they said, can you guys write down your expectations of what you want to happen when you're in the conference? And I was just like, all right, I have no idea. So I started writing things down. It started off with like, I want to be able to release my stress of like all whatever is out there, And then I was like, I want to be able to concentrate and, just normal things that like a teenage girl would say when you're like going to a worship session. And so then I realized there was something deeper out there that I wanted to be done. So I wrote down possible healing over some of my mysterious allergies. Possibly, maybe, hopefully, can that happen, maybe. And I didn't want to write down asthma because I didn't want to be disappointed. I've had asthma since I was 3 years old that we know of. I had my first episode or attack, as the doctors say, when I was 3 years old. And basically what causes that is like the weather changes, the changing in the weather, or exercise, or whatever could cause your breath to be short. And so I was like, we were in the session, we were worshiping, and the first thing that happened was I just could not get into worship. Everything I was like trying to do to like really go for it, I was dancing, I was singing, I was closing my eyes, I was like, hey, get in the presence of God, everyone around you is. And so I was like, I'm gonna do it, I can do it. And then it just wouldn't happen. And so then I decided that I was just, all of a sudden I had this feeling, just sit down on your knees, don't sing, don't dance. And that's not like me. Like, if I sit down and I don't sing and I don't dance, I'm a pastor's daughter. People look at you like something's wrong. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. But then God was like, sit down. And so I was like, fine, all right. So I sit down and I'm not singing. And I'm like, I can't not sing. And then all of a sudden I saw this image in my head of me with like shackles around my ankles that are connected to a concrete wall. And I'm trying to worship and I'm trying to sing and I'm doing the best that I can, but I couldn't break loose. I couldn't fully worship. And so I was like, why is that happening to me? Why can't I just go for it? And so I started praying. I was like, God, will you just like release whatever that is and put your hand on me, God? And right as I prayed, put your hand on me, Abby, she put her hand on me, and I just started crying because I was like, oh my gosh, that was God. And so I get up, I'm like bawling, and Abby's probably thinking, what is wrong with this girl? So then she gives me tissue, I can't even get it out, and I write her the note of what happened, and she starts crying, and she says, Taylor, while I was putting my hand on you, I was praying for you that God would break the chains. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so God. Like there's nothing that can explain that. That was totally God. So then that was the second day of the conference. And then the third day, last day, I was in the conference and they started talking about healing. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I wrote down. And they started talking about how, he was talking about different testimonies of this man he was talking about different testimonies, and then he started talking about how a deaf person can suddenly hear just from someone praying. And I've never experienced that. You read it in the Bible about things, how Jesus can heal, and so I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. Like that still happens now. And so suddenly there's this like crowd forming in the bottom of the aisle in front of us, and it's this little girl, a 9-year-old girl, and she's been deaf since birth, or she's not deaf, but she's deaf since birth. And people started praying for her, and suddenly there's like this screaming and exciting thing, and we're all like, what's happening? Because no one knows. And suddenly they go up to the front to say what happened, and she can hear. And I was like, okay, praise God. And I was like, okay, if she can hear from being deaf since birth, can I be released from asthma? So then I was thinking, all right, don't be disappointed, don't ask, don't do that. So then I was like, all right, I'm not going to say anything. And then right when I was thinking that, the man goes, so then there's this man who had asthma for 38 years and he was saved. And I was like, shut up. That just, like, are you serious? And so then he's like, so, go out. They're going to let us go out to lunch, and, they're saying, go and pray for people. And I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm like bawling from the girl who just got saved from being deaf. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can come back in and have it happen. So we came back after lunch and we started doing worship again. And I was just like, it was the first song, and I just saw Rachel and Josh just starting to get into worship, and I was like, should I ask? Suddenly just something came over me. I could not breathe. I was feeling so sick, and I was like, really? Like, this is pushing me to the limit. Like, I'm not feeling good. And so then I was like, there's something in me, like, go to Rachel and Josh and ask for them to pray for you. And of course, that wasn't my thoughts. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's embarrassing. What if nothing happens? So then I just started walking, and I like go over to Josh and Rachel, and I was like, I already start crying, like, Rachel, can you please pray for my breathing? You know, like, already the ugly cry. And she's like, I can't hear you. What are you saying? I'm like, are you really going to make me say it again? And so then Josh is like, what are we praying for? And I just sit down because I can't breathe. And then she says, for her asthma. And so then they put their hands on me and started praying. I'm not kidding you. I've never experienced something like that. Like, have you ever had your foot fall asleep? It was like from the tip of my toes to the top of my head. And I couldn't move, and I knew right then I was in the presence of God and that I could be healed. And so then Rachel starts praying in my ear, open the airways, God, expand her lungs. And then I couldn't help it. I was just like, and she thinks I'm having an asthma attack. And so then she goes, can you breathe? And I'm like, yes, I can breathe. And then Josh starts talking to me, and he's like, okay, Taylor, what starts your asthma? And, he has his hand on my back, but when they were praying for me, I felt hands right here and right here, and I find out they're not even touching me there. And so obviously I was being healed at that moment from God. He was healing me. And so then Josh says, what causes it? And I'm saying, weather changes, running. And he goes, get up and run. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't just get up and run. I can't even stand up right now. And he goes, get up and run. So I start running, and I'm like, probably going everywhere. I'm just like going like this. And then I think that Josh is holding me, helping me run, but he's not. And so then I go out, and it's 100 degrees outside. I can breathe perfectly.
Amen. Come on.
So then we went home, and I'm telling my parents for the first time, I'm like, I can breathe. I can take deep breaths. This is just awesome. And then my mom's like, go check your peak flow. And I was like, I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's basically like just a little thing where you go and blow really hard so that the red dot can go higher on the scale. So my top on a good day was 225, and that's like sort of in the middle of the whatever it's called, the meter scale. And so I was scared. My mom's like, do it, and she's just staring at me, and I'm like, fine. So then I do it. I got it to the very top, which is awesome, yeah.